Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass. This is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a neuropsychologist. That means I'm a brain doctor. And I'm also the father of a couple of ADHD kids. And I have in laws and my own family, a lot of ADHD. And it's sort of like it's been following me my whole career. But today I want to talk about something a little different. Usually, when we're talking about ADHD children, we're talking about emotional regulation stuff. How do we handle the temper tantrums? And then we're talking about school performance. How do we get better school performance out of them? How do we make sure the school system's working with us instead of against us? And all kinds of things like that. But there's a huge area that is easy. It's easy. And you don't have to fight to get them to do it. Remember, ADHD kids are great at doing stuff they're interested in. So guess what? Oh, we find out what they're interested in. We make that their hobbies, and we just watch them go. You know, they and hobbies and following interests. Basically, I'm going to call them hobbies from now on. It's just easier, but they find their own strengths, their natural strengths. They find their own they find a better ability to regulate emotions, I mean, and some of them do things that are kinda tedious and, sort of I know a lot of kids with ADHD who are big they make stuff, they MacGyver stuff. If you don't know MacGyver, that was a show about a guy who could make eh, things to escape from prisons and things like that with nothing but common everyday objects and items. But anyway, the deal is with ADHD kids is that a lot of them just, they'll take 4 paper clips and 2 rubber bands and build a catapult or something. They just love that kind of stuff, and that's a strength. I mean, that's really a good thing. And it's sometimes it appears to be tedious, but it's actually seems like they're regulating, learning to regulate their emotions and focus in, and also for depending on the activity, a lot of times there's a social connection that you have to be sociable to, if, say you play sports, that's the easiest one to think of. But if you're also in a band or an orchestra or whatever, you also have to get along with others and play by the rules and all that sort of thing. So it's kind of a natural way of getting a lot of this stuff trained in, and you don't have to do much of anything. That's I mean, it's important to, and there are all kinds of stories about ADHD kids who uh, learned to play a musical instrument, and now they make a living. Well, now they make a living being professional ADHD people, but I'm talking about the Holdernesses. But he was basically a guy who wrote jingles for commercials in North Carolina, as a matter of fact. Anyway, so the way that hobbies and following your interests work is, and a lot of times that leads to your job, your profession. Uh, like I say, the Holderness picture, they diddled around with the piano. His mother was really big on music. Michael Phelps' mother was really, she was a school principal, and he had significant ADHD problems, and swimming was his, and that was his outlet. That's what he did with his extra energy, and that's what he did. Uh, well, that's his been his whole life story. Basically, he's still around, but he's not swimming competitively anymore. But I mean, you got to look at your kids and see what do they like to do. Um, and it can be tons of different areas. You just when they get really interested and focused, what you been doing? Oh, I've been playing with grandpa's coin collection, or that's not me. I don't have a coin collection. Sorry. But anyway, you you just it's potentially an area that you don't have to get too involved in, really, except to support it. Oh, hey, that's great. Wow. Oh, you made the team. Oh, great. Oh, your first chair in the orchestra. Oh, you know, that's your job basically, and probably to foot the bills for whatever it is. But you're going to be doing it anyway. Um, it's good for them in the sense that they build some life skills, and they build persistence. I always keep talking about resilience, that you have to learn from your mistakes and treat it as a lesson, not a failure, and da 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 da. Keep going on, but you're basically building persistence. You got to persist. You play sports, you've got to keep trying to get better. Playing a musical instrument, you have to keep trying to get better. Uh, so it builds a certain persistence. It builds some executive functioning too. You have to learn how things work, how things run, how you have to. Some things it depends on exactly what the hobby is, but some things require you to make arrangements, to do some management, to even just get yourself there on time, all those sorts of things. And also, certain sports, the ones that are more social, like sports, uh, and music and acting and that sort of thing, where you have to interact with other people. You have to have a certain amount of emotional regulation, or you don't get to play. And then the other, it also helps with social skills. So there's a lot to be said for it. You've just, but last time I talked about, don't let them quit once they start things, and that's part of this whole deal with hobbies and interests. And so, I mean, there are just tons of things that can be done. Um, I'll start with my dad was a golf pro, so I'm big on the sports things. The best thing about sports is that you learn how your body works. You learn how to develop physical skills, and you learn how to do strategy, and for most of the sports, and you learn the importance of preparation, and plus you also keep your body working the way it's supposed to, and there are the normal organized sports, the like baseball, soccer, lacrosse, all the sport, football, yes. Although football, you got to be a little more concerned about brain injuries and that sort of thing, and you've got to be a little more aware of what the quality of coaching that you get. And then there are all the outdoor sports: hiking, backpacking, skiing, mountain climbing, skating, and it's. Oh, I forgot rowing. How could I forget rowing? I do that every day. Rowing and kayaking uh, are amazing, and they're pretty cheap relatively. Boating in general is horribly expensive, especially if you have to get 3,000 horsepower on the stern of your boat. But just be able to get out on a well, I live in Virginia. I have some of the best kayaking stuff in the world in the Chesapeake area, and it's relaxing. It's good exercise, uh, and you have to do a certain amount of planning to go to different places to kayak, and to know the equipment you need to take with you, and how to protect yourself, and all those things. There's a learning process to it, but it is really good exercise. It's not low impact, so it doesn't hurt anything. Get you out there. It's a meditative kind of experience, and I highly recommend it. But I recommend pretty much all the outdoor activities. With sports, organized sports especially, there's always the, "Oh, you didn't play my son," or "You didn't play my daughter," or, uh, you know I was a military family for a lot of times, and a lot of times the military kids were the ones who sat the bench in Little League, and the, locals, that everybody had known for their whole lives, got the bulk of the playing time. Talent didn't really matter. So, I mean, I have my caution on team sports is you have to survive the kind of coaching you're gonna get until you get to real professional coaches, and sometimes that isn't even in high school, but high school, it starts getting better. Let's just say that. Otherwise, the baseball coach might be the math teacher and probably not gonna get a high level of coaching and training. Uh, so then there are like creative sports, well, I don't know if they're sports, but they're hobbies. Creative things like art, drawing, uh, cartooning, which I have fun with. I like to do that. And then there's music, of course. Uh, you have to. Music can be a two-edged sword. Well, almost anything can be, but music. I mean, I know lots of people who thought they were going to take the band on the road, and that didn't work out too well because that's a really hard gig. I mean, it's really hard to make a living uh, as a professional musician. I mean, I have a number of patients who are musicians, local musicians, and they pay to play. So it's not like they're making tons of money. And a lot of people who, play bars and that sort of stuff, they gig every night, but they don't make hardly any money. They're working for tips and that sort of stuff. I mean, it's mixed, but if it doesn't have to be a profession. Uh, I've never been to any social gathering where if somebody played the piano or a guitar or something, they didn't start playing for everybody at the party. So and photography, I forgot photography, which now is one of my favorites. And good Lord, with the way uh, iPhones and that ilk are improving so much, you can take really incredible pictures without $4,000 worth of equipment, which I have gathering dust in my closet. So, let's see. There's a lot of things are really, really. I have recommended for uh, ADHD parents is well, a couple of them. One is martial arts. Martial arts. It's the discipline, and yet it's cool. It's there's a lot of discipline to it. You have to uh, obey sensei and all that stuff. But I used to refer people to a martial arts studio in the area that I knew did progressive kinds of behavior management things, and they did a really fine job. For little boys, it's like, oh, I can break a board or something like that. And there's also a byproduct of martial arts is that you learn to calm yourself and regulate your emotions, and of course, we want that for our ADHD kids. And there's also yoga. Yoga is great for kids. Well, it's great for even us old guys. And it's not that, I mean, it's not like it's a complicated, frustrating thing. It's a nice self-regulation kind of activity. And, sometimes going directly at the issues you have with your child, being calm and cool and collected and stuff will, well, it will be beneficial without, and sometimes they just love it because there's some notion that ADHD kids are more flexible than others. I know in my family, my most hyperactive child is also the most flexible. I mean, he's an old man now, but he can still twist himself into knots and things like that, that I would tear something if I tried to do what he does. And, they're I don't know if I call them hobbies, but there are also, like Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, brownies, uh, all that. And those are I don't know, I'm sort of mixed on those, but, if you like that sort of thing, especially the outdoorsy thing, it's you can if you get into merit badge earning, yeah, that could be a really fine area for you to be involved in. Uh, and there's an emphasis on doing outdoor activities, which we already talked about. But I grew up in New Hampshire. We did outdoor activities routinely right out in our backyards. That was in a patch of woods, and there was, we did hiking and camping out, and oh, uh, all the sorts of things that scouts do, and also that uh, just outdoor people who are outdoor enthusiasts do. So the deal, I think, is that hobbies, interests, that sort of stuff are a welcome relief for ADHD parents because you don't have to try to force an outcome. They have interests. They all do, and a lot of them are really strong interests. So you just let them go in that direction and, not necessarily thinking it'll be the way they make a living, although it well might be. Lord knows with the way AI is changing everything and the way, well, the political situation and all that sort of thing. I'm not sure a conventional education like the one I had or the one my wife had is going to matter much in the future. I don't know, but it seems like there are big changes that are happening and are coming that are maybe going to make life a little easier for ADHDers. I know the internet is not a place where only people who are experts congregate. It's definitely for everybody, and sometimes that's a good thing. So, one I didn't mention. What about technology? Well, in this, as I'm doing this show, uh, people with degrees in what do we? I don't even know what they're calling it anymore, but computer stuff. IT people are having a hard time finding a job because the entry level jobs are now doing all the tasks that are the entry level jobs are no longer necessary because AI can do most of those tasks cheaper and faster and all that other stuff. But I don't know where they think they're going to get their senior IT guys if they don't bring in their junior IT guys. I increasingly am confused by business and why people do the things they do. Okay, so you still got to mention that there are a lot of things that are mostly intellectual, if you will, or I mean, like chess. I mean, I know chess is sometimes seen as a sport, but I have trouble seeing that, but it doesn't really matter. It's a game and it's a strategy game, and you have to have really good visual spatial skills to be see the board in your head and all that other stuff. Uh, but it's also a well, it's actually good brain training, uh, and if your kiddo happens to pick chess, hey, great, more power to them. I know, I had one young man as a young patient with ADHD, and he used to routinely whip me at chess. And I'm not very good, but he still was awfully good at it. But there are some exciting things like in robotics, and there are robotics teams, and all that sort of thing. that was one of my son's favorite things in school. And there are a lot of things about it, but I mean, the big deal is always going to be computer games. Uh, and computer games are mixed. I have had people who got obsessed with computer games, and that's all they wanted to do is play computer games. And this was I don't even think he had ADHD. I think he was just a teenager. He missed a whole year of high school because he was clever. He and that cost him, I think, a year of his life in the sense that he kept making up physical, oh, I've got, I hurt, and this sort of thing. And his dad was a doctor, and this kid had $1 million workup. He had, every kind of test you can have, and they couldn't find anything because he really didn't have anything except he had an uncle who was lived in mom's basement playing computer games all the time. That was his idol. And he did a pretty good job. He'd cost himself the sophomore year in high school because he just didn't go to school because he was always sick. But the obsession part of that is always the issue with computer games. And yet there are some things that say the people who play computer games are better surgeons. People who play computer games are better fighter pilots. I don't know. I mean, I think that the research on that sort of thing is still out, but I think one of the things as parents in this day and age, I didn't have to deal with this much because my kids are older, but you guys are all having to deal with computers. You have to have computers or you can't you can't graduate from high school. I'm not sure you can graduate from kindergarten anymore, but you have to have some computer knowledge. And the uh, for a guy like me who didn't grow up with computers, I mean, I still have the Smith Corona I took to college, which I also used to type my dissertation. So there, but I am at a weakness. I keep working at it, but I'm not great at computer stuff. Uh, I I can learn a program easier than I can learn how to operate the whole computer, if you know the distinction I'm trying to make. But I mean, the big deal is with kids, you've got to allow the access to computers. It's not as simple as just saying you're not going to play computers until you're 12 years old or whatever. But if they want to do homework in school, they better learn computers and do the work on their computers. So you can't just outlaw them, but you've got to make sure it doesn't get out of control, and that's always a tricky one. Uh, you try to keep it. Well, you just try to keep it under control and to a minimum, and under control kind of depends on you. Uh, I used to have a son-in-law who was a computer geek, so his kids were running around in diapers with their iPads. It's like, okay, whatever. Uh, Grandpa doesn't get to say a whole bunch in that situation, but you've got to watch that. You've just got to make sure that you're establishing appropriate limits, and that's not the only thing they do. It's a short leap from being obsessed with computer games when you're in high school to being 27 years old and living in mom's basement on your computer 100% of the time. You just that's the nightmare. I think all of us, to some extent, have. And you've got to keep your kids. You've got to keep them focused, just for want of a better word. It's okay to play computers. It's okay to be good at computers. Matter of fact, it's wonderful to be good at computers, but you can't spend your whole life sitting on your bucket or whatever you use and just playing with the computer, playing computer games. You've got to have the life. You need a balance, a little bit of a lot of outdoor time, a lot of exercise, a lot of interacting with people socially, athletically, all that sort of stuff, and that's important. But this you manage it, you structure it, you structure it loosely, uh, so that you still know what's going on and you're in charge of it and you've got it made. It's a little easier, I think, honestly, than trying to get them to do 25 math problems at one time at night after a day of school. Okay, I will catch you on the next issue of this little episode. Uh, I am Terry James Gingrass. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist and behavior medicine specialist and an aviation psychologist and a whole bunch of I liked to study and learn stuff. But anyway, and my website is terrygingrassphd.com. And you can sign up for an interview for coaching. You can sign up for my newsletter. Shortly, I'll be putting my blog on it, and that's the place. Sign up for courses, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so we'll catch you next time, and thanks for being here.